Okay, let's try this again. Let's see here. Live streaming comic making. Whee! Okay, so this little camera is not working right now, so I'm hooked up to the, what is this? The FaceTime camera. It's gonna be weird because most of the time I'm gonna be looking down because here's my screen, there's the camera. I kind of wanted this camera to be here, but whatever, it's a thing. Yeah, I'm gonna be doing some more Yasuke stuff, but before I get to that, I'm using Sherlock Comics, mini Sherlock Comics to sort of warm up. So it all starts with a wacky pose. And if you want to check out some of the other comics that Steve and I have done, head on over to minisherlock.com, where you can see all the funny things. Steve is the writer, and then I take what he writes and interpret it. So he never really gives me a specific description of the clients, just, you know, the dialogue that they say and who it is, whether it's like a man or a woman or an old professor or a farmer or something like that. And then it's up to me to interpret what that means. And so part of the charm for him is getting back drawings that he didn't expect. So there have been a couple of times when what he thought I would draw and what I did draw was the same thing, so that's pretty cool. But for the most part, Steve's brain and my brain are at different wavelengths, and it all works out because we both love Sherlock Holmes, because we're both big stupid nerds. So, and again, I try to keep these loose. My style tends to be really tight, so I try to use the Sherlocks to kind of loosen up and get a little bit more animated with my line work and my design work and stuff. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes I get bogged down into the details, but the goal is to do these quickly and to just get my arm used to moving. So nothing too fancy. And you'll see why this guy's freaking out. Oh, and it turns out that the channel I was using, even though if it's off the Twitch music library, turns out that they're not all safe. So I got copyright strikes against the thing. So the audio won't cut. The audio won't play in the video on demand for the last stream that I did in some sections, which is fine because you can't actually hear what I'm saying. So there's that. But I would be anxious to hear if any of you who are more familiar with Twitch have a good solution for stream safe music, because you know, drawing comics is a solitary pursuit, and there's not a whole lot of talking when it happens. So there's going to be some dead air, which I know is death for a stream. But like even if you're an artist working in a studio studio scenario and you have fellow creators surrounding you, ain't a whole lot of talking. You know, when it comes time to work, you gotta work. So. I didn't like the brush I was using yesterday, so I think I'll use a different brush today. But for now, let's give this guy chicken anime hair. Whoa! Whoa! He's got baggy pants. Cause who likes drawing baggy pants? Everyone likes drawing baggy pants. They hide the feet. So you don't have to worry about stuff like laces and things. So I am using Photoshop, and inevitably somebody is going to ask, what's the brush set that you use? And I bought a number of brushes off of Kyle Brush. I think it's kylebrush.com. But he's come up with a lot of great sets that mimic real world materials. So like, you know, real pencils, real pens, things like that. And I suppose you could spend time learning out how to do. I'm just gonna flip Watson here because I don't want to forget that I have to do a Watson treatment. So edit, flip horizontal. There you go. And let's see, what is Watson's punchline? Watson says, seriously. So gonna give him a sassy look. What am I doing here? Oops. There's a look of disdain. Baggy pants. Everybody likes baggy pants. Baggy pants. Baggy pants. So here's a fucked up content idea is I compose music every once in a while, and I would create backing tracks for some of my streams or some of my videos, and I use Reason, Propellerhead's Reason, and there are a couple of samples and beats and sounds that are licensed for Reason users. And so sometimes I would create a track using those, and then it's all original music, all original beats, all original progressions and things like that. And still, like, Content ID would flag my video for stuff, and I would try to appeal, be like, you know, I wrote this on Reason, I can show you the source files, and, you know, YouTube would be like, I don't care. And so, you know, I wouldn't be able to monetize those videos, so it's really it's really a pain in the ass sometimes to use music, which means sorry, you don't get any music until somebody can help me figure out a proper solution for this kind of thing. So I'm gonna be using this Belgian comic inker brush because I like the way it, the smoothness of the line, and this is what I've been using for the Yasuke stuff. sometimes I also use your new favorite inker, which has doesn't really smooth out the lines as much as the Belgian one does, but it prints well. So, and I use that for the Decay comic that I worked on over the fall. I used to do all my line work from pencils to inks exclusively in Manga Studio because I loved the inking tools, the default inking tools, the default pencil tools. It felt really good. It felt like what I was used to drawing with pencil and paper and inking on Bristol board, and it just felt good. It felt like, you know, like I expected an ink brush to behave and how I expected a pencil to behave, and it had texture to it, which made it really cool. But the frustrating thing about Manga Studio is the rotation, the canvas rotation, and I could be remembering this incorrectly, so I'll have to open up a copy and see if I'm full of shit. But from what I remember, rotating the canvas was always a pain in the ass. So that's why I went back to Photoshop. Especially when I got my hands on the Kyle brushes. They gave me what I need in terms of line width and feel. It's weird talking about feel when it's all digital, but there is a feel to these things, guys. I could be wrong. I think maybe canvas rotation does work in Manga Studio. I forget why. I honestly forget why I switched back. But Photoshop is just, I know all the shortcuts. I've been using it for years. I used to be a professional colorist, and working in a production environment with crazy tight deadlines, I got used to a lot of the workflows in Photoshop that, you know, helped me get my shit done on time. So that isn't to say that you can't do the same kind of stuff in Manga Studio. This is just what I prefer. But at this point, like, there are so many other options for digital artists. Like, if you're not already ingrained in Adobe's Creative Suite, if you're not already ensconced in their products, and you're looking to get started with digital art, you know, Photoshop is the most expensive, but it's not necessarily the most intuitive or the best for what you're trying to do. So if you find something that works for you and you get the results that you're looking for, and you know, you like the way it works and you're able to get stuff done, that's great. You know, don't use something just because someone else uses. Try a bunch of shit out, see what fits, see what you can figure out, see what fits your style of creation, and go with it. You know, don't just use something because someone else is using it. Try it first. You know, a lot of people get hung up on, you know, what type of brushes are you using, and you know, what are your settings, and you know, what's the tablet that you're using, and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, certainly the hardware is going to get you far, but if you can't draw to begin with, if you don't have the fundamentals, a nice piece of kit ain't gonna fix your stuff. Like, you can have the most expensive Cintiq Wacom setup on your desk, but if you can't draw a line, if you don't know proportions, if you don't know how to construct a figure or a volume or any of that, then you know, you got a $3,000 table weight or paperweight. So yeah, don't let the price tag fool you. If you can't draw, Cintiq isn't gonna help you. Photoshop isn't gonna help you. None of this shit's gonna help you. You know, once you do learn how to draw, some of the more expensive stuff, those tools are gonna be, you're gonna get more out of them because you're well practiced and you're well versed in how to draw to begin with. But like, if you're starting from scratch, make it easier on yourself. Find some easy shit to work with. Don't hop right into the Photoshop if you don't have to. If you don't wanna get bogged down into Adobe's subscription model, you know, you don't have to. But you gotta try a whole bunch of stuff out, you know. You never know until you try it. I say this as I've been using Photoshop for like, I don't know, man, maybe like 20 years now. But it's not necessarily the best. It's the best for me at this particular moment. But who knows? There might be something that comes along that is better. For a while, Manga Studio was my shit. Did everything I needed it to do. And then I went back to Photoshop because I am a sucker. Okay, pants and more pants. Ah! Oh, right, hair. Hair's good. Oh, and I forgot, this is the wrong direction. Do 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 do. How would I do the sides? There we go. Woo. Woo, 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 woo. That looks dumb. How about... If you don't make sound effects while you're drawing, you're doing it incorrectly. You always have to have sound effects. Okay. And then let's add some wrinkles and some other wrinkles and some bottom wrinkles. That's not a wrinkle. And some, oops, rotate. Here we go. Some cross stretching. And some of this, and some of that, and some of that. Oops, some of that. Okay. And now let's do our snarky expression. And let's see if it looks good from the opposite direction. Looks good to me. Alright, we're turning off the sketch layer. Let's erase the pre-drawn eyes and stuff. The pre-drawn mouth. There's our snarky John Watson. Oops. And then we'll flip it back. Alright, let's turn on our background. Bam! And let's turn on John Watson flats and let's flip them around so it looks more proper. Transform, flip horizontal. And then we gotta line that stuff up back again. Okay, so, oh, here we go. There's the shadow color. Grab the shadow layer. Draw in the shadow here, and then fill it, and then get rid of that halo. Okay, so my typical setup, and this is just the way I do the. Oh, here, let me add in a little bit of a. There we go. All right, so my typical setup when I draw comics, I have everything broken into layers. There's usually a line art layer and then a flat layer and then shading above the flat layer, and then I usually shove all that stuff into a folder, and then below that is the background. And I like keeping things in that particular order. So when it comes time to flatting a character and giving it an overall basic shape without any shadows or anything like that, I'll choose a very off-putting color to fill, like this harsh red, because it lets me see if I'm going out of the lines or if I need to fill in somewhere. And I'll show you as soon as I start swatching in the colors. I do have a plugin that kind of does this automatically, but I found that you have to go back and then re-swatch everything and then refill certain areas, and you have to make sure all your shapes are closed. So sometimes if your line art has open holes in it, the flatting plugin will just fill everything. You don't want that. So sometimes it's faster doing it by hand, which may sound counterintuitive, but that is the truth. And especially for something this small and basic, it's good to keep up with hand flatting. Flatting can be a foot in the door if you are interested in breaking into comics on the coloring side, but you have to be fast. You have to be able to flat, maybe 10 pages a day. That includes characters and backgrounds and all that stuff. And it's shit work. It's like intern work. Like, if you get $5 a page for flatting, you are rich, sir. But it gets your foot in the door, and you can get paid, and you can end up working for some of the big names in comics. The problem is, if you're good at flatting, then everybody wants you, and then you're going to be spending most of your time flatting comics instead of maybe doing something that you actually want to do. Like, if you're interested in coloring, if you spend most of your time flatting, you're not going to actually have time to do any actual coloring. So, but there are people who enjoy that kind of stuff, Just put on a movie in the background and grind away. And there's nothing wrong with that. Oops, what did I do here? There we go. And it's thankless work. You often do not get a credit in the comic. There's usually no byline for flatted by. So it's, but it's there if you want it. And like I said, there is a plugin that gets rid of that job, so flatters are becoming a A rare breed indeed. Automation is taking away that job. Automation is taking away all the jorbs. Alright, so let's see. Oh, I'm going to mute. Okay, I'm off the phone. Haha. I can draw and be on the phone at the same time. All right, so the dialogue is all on a in a separate folder here, and then the dialogue balloons are all on one shape layer, and you can manipulate that in Photoshop. If I was a professional letterer, I would have a template set up in Illustrator and then import everything and then export it from there, because Illustrator handles these vector balloons a lot better than Photoshop does natively. But the idea behind this comic is to be as simple and lazy as possible, so all this stuff is in Photoshop. That's why I set it up that way. That's why. And I am not a letterer by profession, but there are certain rules that you should try to follow. Chief among them, make sure your tails, this little part that I'm working on right now, make sure your tails point to the mouth of the character who is speaking, because the dialogue emanates from the face, specifically the mouth. So you should be able to draw an invisible line between the tail, the end of your tail, and the character's mouth. There you go. The Adventures of the Hairy Palms. Let me replace this, or fix that placement. And there's this kid freaking out because his girlfriend caught him looking at porn. Alright, so save as. There we go. 13. Alright, back to some Yasuke. So I'm kind of drawing Yasuke out of order, and I'm also leaving out certain things, like anytime there's a giant crowd shot, I'm leaving that for later. Anytime there's enemies charging and stuff like that, I'm leaving out large portions of the book because crowds are difficult for me, so I want to tackle all that stuff at the end. And the way so let's see, I'll do the setup again because I think that was missing from last night's stream. So the way I started out this book, the writer Koji, what is your last name, Koji? Is it Sakai? Anyway, Koji sent me the dialogue and the breakdowns, and you know, this happens on page whatever, this happens on page whatever, this happens in this frame, this happens in this frame. So I took Koji's stuff and broke it down page by page and drew thumbnails at a really tiny size. So the idea behind the thumbnail is to just lay out the panels, however many panels are going to be on the page, arrange the panels the way you want them to look in the final book, and then fill those panels with something. And you know, it's not supposed to be very detailed, it's not supposed to be really tight illustrations, it's just supposed to place some figures in the space so that you can go back and clean it up and tighten it up. So this is what a thumbnail will look like, at least when I do it. Some people's thumbnails, some artists' thumbnails are immaculate. Like the woman who does Saga, who draws Saga, Fiona Staples. Her thumbnails are fucking amazing. Like they're almost, you know, loose pencil quality. You could almost ink off of her thumbnails. I ain't that good. So here's my chicken scratch. This is what I did for my thumbnails. So I thumbnailed the whole book, and then I blew up the thumbnail to print resolution. So that's what this is. It's 1117 by 1117, so that's at 300 dpi, that's 3,300 pixels wide by 5,100 pixels high. And then I put the thumbnail on its own layer and turned down the opacity, and then put a blue filter on it, so just the blue color screen to top it. And then I laid out my panels, and then I tightened up the sketches, which you might have seen on my first stream. I don't know why you would have tuned in on that. That was me trying to figure out how Twitch works. So if you saw that, thank you. If you missed out, you didn't miss anything. And so I use blue for the first phase of the pencils, just the blocking, and then red for the tighter pencils. It's all digital, so it's, you know, pencils, quote unquote. This is a thing that happens a lot in animation. This is clearly not animation, but I like having the color separation. It helps me when I ink over the red. I just get used to it. So now I'm going to start on a new layer. We're going to call this inks, and go back in with straight black and pretty all this ugly stuff up. Make it look a little bit nicer. And let's start with Nobunaga, because this is the first time we see his demon horns. And he's going to be in silhouette, so this is an easy place to start. So this is historical fiction. I mean, Yasuke was a historical figure. He was actually a real person. There are some records of Yasuke, so we know he existed. But you know, the specifics are kind of left to the imagination. So that's what Koji based his story on. You know, he's done a lot of research into Yasuke, where he came from, and that sort of thing. So he's pieced together as much as he could, and it's fiction. So a lot of the things that happen in our comic are not necessarily historical fact. You know, a lot of it's to tell an interesting story. So when I'm depicting these things through the artwork, not everything is completely accurate. Like, it's doubtful that Nobunaga had a sword with a rapier style hilt, and it's doubtful that Nobunaga had a helmet with horns that were bigger than his head, you know. But these things I put in for dramatic effect. So, you know, the peasant clothes isn't necessarily a period to the 16th century, all that kind of stuff. I guess the idea is to sort of give you the impression of the era, not a historical record of the era. So that's why things might look a little bit off when you actually read it, if you are well versed in the history of the time. Basically, if the shit looks cool, that's the ethos behind it. And these guys are getting blowed away, so we're gonna use the pocket brush and use the texture and dig into here. And render some of this stuff out. So in this particular frame, the charging soldiers are getting blown away. So I'm just kind of drawing in the bodies getting blasted. Nobunaga was one of the first to use guns in Japanese combat, so you see a lot of that in this comic. There are a lot of depictions of Nobunaga with a gun. Kamen Rider Ghost, the Nobunaga icon. When Kamen Rider Ghost would put that in, he would have this big, ugly purple gun that he could shoot people with. I think there was another incarnation of Nobunaga in another Kamen Rider. I think it was it in Double? I don't remember. But there was another incarnation of Nobunaga in Kamen Rider where he also had a gun. So Nobunaga is most often depicted with a firearm of some kind, like a flintlock rifle. This is what it looks like without the sketch layer. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. There he goes. Getting blasted. Ah! Remember, if you don't use sound effects when you're drawing, you're doing it wrong. Kakamura. I have Moana on the mind. Moana is my daughter's favorite movie, so like we've seen it a whole bunch of times, and I don't know why I have Kakamura on the mind. Kakamura, the coconut bad guys. So this is this brush here is called the what do we call this? This is the pocket brush, and it emulates one of my favorite real life brushes, the Pentel pocket brush. So you've probably heard of brush pens before. Faber-Castell has a brush pen. Micron sells a brush pen. You know, any of those popular pen makers also have a brush style pen. There's a Copic, the Copic brush pens are well known for their blending and all that kind of stuff. It's not really a brush. What it is a piece of foam that's cut to a point to look like a brush. And the only problem with that is that those foam tips wear out. So the Pentel Pocket Brush was kind of a revolution when it came out, because instead of using just a solid foam tip that was carved, it's made up of little nylon bristles that come to a point. So it's like an actual brush, but instead of having to dip it into like a paint can, like a regular brush, like this thing, there's a ink cartridge, and you screw it in, and then it's refillable, so the ink flows out from the base, and it keeps a point always, and it's always loaded with ink as long as you have a cartridge in it. And it makes the pocket brush extremely portable, so you can take it with you to a convention, or you can take it with you to school, or you could take it with you to art class. Like, you could take it anywhere you want to go, and when it comes time to do some inking or painting, because you can fill it with different colors, you know, you're good to go. So this this particular this digital brush seeks to emulate the feel and the texture of using one of those Pentel pocket brushes. But yeah, when I found one of those things, it kind of blew my mind. I was like, whoa! Because my weapon of choice is a Sable Kolinsky brush with like a good snap to it, and you know, using waterproof India ink on a nice piece of Bristol. That's my preferred method of drawing comics. It's just these days it's easier and quicker for me to work digitally, because if I need to change things quickly, or if I need to print stuff out, or if I need to adjust colors or anything like that, or redraw a panel, I can do that much quicker digitally than I can with regular traditional materials. So that's why I enjoy using tools that simulate kind of the brush effect. What I really want is for Wacom to develop an actual brush. So instead of a plastic nib, I would love it if they were somehow able to take the nylon strands, turn that into a stylus that actually worked like a brush. So the more pressure you put down, the thicker line you could get. That way you wouldn't have to get all these weird customizations to make a brush look in digital format. You could just use the brush like you would regularly. And that would be amazing. I don't know who I need to contact over at Wacom to work with them on that, but that's something that I would absolutely love. That would make my life a hell of a lot easier, and it would just be so cool. That's what I want in the future. I want Wacom to make a brush, not this stylus pen bullshit. We're gonna have self-driving cars. You're telling me we can't have a stylus that's a brush? An actual brush? I know there's like a metal bristle nib brush thing for iPad or for your mobile. That does not count, because those individual bristles don't actually affect anything. It's just the feel of a brush. That's cheating. But I want actual bristles to make actual marks in Photoshop. Like, you know, I don't want to have to spend money on, you know, brush sets that someone hacked together. I just want to be able to, you know, put a brush on the tablet, you know. That would be awesome. You know, someday if I ever get a chance to speak with somebody at Wacom, I'll be like, you see this Pentel pocket brush? Make me that shit for my Cintiq. And I'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, you know exactly what I'm talking about, Betty. It's the new damn millennium, right? We should be further along in our technology than this. Don't let Microsoft punk you. Come back, Wacko. So yeah, I'm basically shading the opposite side of where the light's coming from. So the light is coming from this direction here. So everything facing this direction is getting the shaded treatment. And that's how I'm building up the form. It's using negative space to kind of render out these bodies. It's mostly for dramatic effect. It's for dramatic effect, not realism. So it makes more sense when I turn off the sketch layer, so you can actually see what's happening. Even though I'm not rendering out all the lines, like I'm not drawing the outline of the shape here. You know, you can still tell what's happening without this contour line. So. Inking is one of my favorite things to do. Playing with digital ink is cool, but I like using real messy bottle ink that just gets all over the place. That's one of my favorite things to work in, is pen and ink. Brush and ink, pen and ink, whatever. If I can make a mark with it, that's my favorite. I think I'm also going to be doing some ZBrush sculpting on this channel, because I still do want to. I have dreams of getting into the collectible market. It's just, you know, there's no real deadline on this Yasuke comic, but I want to get it out sooner than later, because I have other projects that I want to work on, but also, like, you know, I think there's a short timeline when this Yasuke thing can hit, because there's already a movie in the works. You know, I've been posting pages to Instagram. I got contacted by somebody on Instagram saying that they're also working on a Yasuke project. So I think the first thing that comes out that hits the market is going to kind of define what Yasuke could be. So I'm really excited about what Koji's been putting together for this. And you know, the week he told me about it, I went right home and I did a couple of concept art stuff, and then did a full mask rendering of his mask, which was a lot of fun. And so I have ideas for props and ideas for weapons and ideas for all this other stuff. So, like, you know, I feel like there's a bit of urgency with this project. Like, the sooner we get it out, the sooner we can grab a hold of it, because it seems like now is the time for something Yasuke related. And this is, you know, if we can be there first, we can help bring this story to a new generation of people. I'd never heard of Yasuke before, you know. It was when Koji told me about it, like, there was a 6-foot black samurai in Nobunaga's court who was with Nobunaga the day he died. I was like, why the fuck is this not a thing? Like, how am I just now hearing about this? And there's statues dedicated to him. So there's information out there. There is a French picture book about Yasuke, but you know, there's nothing bigger. So this is sort of our chance to hop on that. And I want to be there. I want to be among the first. So I think I'm going to use the same brush treatment here for the soldiers shooting the teppo, the guns. So I'm going to be rendering. So the explosions are coming from here, which means there's light coming from this direction. So the stuff on this side is going to get more rendered than the stuff on this end. So I'm trying to keep this shit loose, man. But you know, it's me, so I end up making everything look pretty tight. It's my style, I guess. Whatever style I've developed has been unintentional up until this point. It's like, I don't know, man, I just draw the thing. The coloring style is going to be heavily anime influenced. It's what I call cell shading. So instead of the typical comic book rendering where you might have soft gradations of dark to light and shadow conditions and all that kind of stuff, I'm going for a more animated feel, at least for the foreground and the characters. The backgrounds are going to be digitally painted, so that's the technique that I'm doing here. So I'm not inking any of the background stuff. The background stuff is all going to be painted. The foreground things are all going to be drawn or inked this way. So, you know, inked outlines, and then cell shaded as if it was an animated feature, and then painted backgrounds. So like as close to animation without actually animating a frame. That's just the way I work. It is not the way to work. It is not the best way to work. It is the way that I work. So and I need to look up a reference. I have this big ass book of samurai shit, so I need to look up a reference for the way the sword tucks into the belt for this specific foot soldier who has a gun, because guns. And that's the one. That's the one. That's the one. Alright, he kind of wears it low here, and it kind of sticks out the back. Right, like so. So this is the short sword. And let's see, how does that look? You flip it. That works out pretty good. So I'm drawing these out of order. I'm trying to draw scene by scene. So I started from the end just because there were like 6 pages that happened in the same setting, and I wanted to kind of draw those all at the same time. And now I'm hopping towards more the front of the book, which has 3 pages that happened at the same time. So, and then when I go back and color them, I'm going to do the same thing, like color it scene by scene by scene, just to make those internal scenes a little bit more consistent with each other. You will find out as you follow me that I cannot draw on model, which is why I'm not an animator. I don't have those muscles to do that. But hopefully by drawing things in the same scene, those bits will be internally consistent with each other and make it look like, all of this happens at the same time, or all of this happens relatively close to each other. So at least that's my plan. That's the theory. That's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna approach it. It's kind of late, I guess, but I really like this loose, crappy style of inking. It's like this, if it fits, it fits style of inking here. It's refreshing, It's not so fussy. Sword, short sword, short sword. Guns, guns, guns. Everybody likes guns. I should say stuff. Okay. I don't know what else to say. I'm just kind of loosely inking these things because I want the impression that there's a lot of action going on here in this scene with the guns going off. It's really to kind of give an impression that some action is happening, that the boomsticks are exploding, like boom, since you can't see camera shake in a still image. This is sort of the next best thing. Foreshortening is always hard. It's something I need a lot of practice on. Plus crowds, plus drawing on model, like, you know, it's a lot of stuff I need to work on. So if you've come here to watch somebody struggle with life in comics, there you go. That's what I'm here about. That's what I'm here for. That's what this channel is all about. Struggle. Struggle is real. Alright, let's switch back to some actual inkies. So back to our classy friend, the Belgian inker. Before we do that, let's move this nose up a little bit. What's going on there, buddy? Yeah, that fits better. So I like to start with the nose when I ink. I don't have a good explanation of why, or like a, you know, like, oh, this helps me establish this thing and blah blah blah. No, I just like working on the nose. Some people start with the eyes, some people start with the chin. I usually map in the nose first, at least when it comes to ink. And then I move up to the eyes, and then usually the sides of the face. And then the mouth. I usually leave the mouth for last. Actually, I do leave the mouth for last. I didn't even realize that until just now when I said it. But I usually leave the mouth for last. Like, I feel... no reason why. Again, it's just the order that I choose to do things in. And he's shouting something fierce. Ulter! Which means fire! So, I tend to make a lot of faces when I draw, or when I'm inking, or when I'm doing anything like arr, arr, arr. And it's weird because I don't hold up a mirror to see what my expression is doing, but I guess I feel like if I can feel the muscles pulling in a direction, then I can mimic it in the artwork. So if you see me just going like this every once in a while, it's because I'm mimicking what I am inking. Because I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. And we got side panels. It's to cover your cheeks, because your cheeks is very important in battle. You have to have clear cheeks. I have no idea how important cheeks are for battle. Yeah. So I kind of designed this helmet on the fly. I thought it looked a little bit more interesting than the typical Kabuto setup, so I gave him sort of the shark fin look, and then the emblem on his helmet here is supposed to be like an explosion. So that's the theory behind Mr. Sharkfin hat. Oh, wait, and then there's the rim here. I forgot about that. And there's the rim. And that doesn't line up. That lines up. Okay, now for the center crease. Always remember to hydrate, even if you're just drawing. Health tips. Let's see here. So, oops. I often ink outside the borders because why not? And I need a little bit more detail to figure out what I'm going to, where I'm headed here. Here's the neckline. This is a piece of armor, I think. Some kind of pattern, maybe. I tend to draw, did I already say that? I tend to draw outside the lines, or if I, to extend lines beyond where they where the object is supposed to terminate, and then go back and erase. That's just so that the line has a feel like it's supposed to continue off the page. Let's see, no real reason. I feel like this needs some more detail. And maybe I'll, oops, wrong layer. Maybe I'll detail this up in the coloring. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll do it live! Okay. This frame, the general is telling his people to hold, even though they're being pursued by an overwhelming force on horseback, and these guys are seemingly on foot with nothing. Of course, we know that they have guns, because we can look right down to the next panel and see that they have guns. But at this point, nobody knows that they have guns, except the general. I think what I want to do is give every one of Nobunaga's generals a weird ass looking helmet. Something that could be from that era, but vaguely not. Like Tokugawa should have some kind of weird helmet. Because I don't know, to spice it up, to give it some variety, because everyone's seen a samurai helmet. So if I can play around with the shapes and give them something slightly different that could be plausible, but is wholly screwy and made up, then I think that'd be fun. And it would go with the whole if it looks cool, do it ethos of drawing comics. Does this shit look cool? Yeah? Alright, let's do it. So that's my theory. The further we get into this is to design crazier and crazier helmets with the intent, well, with the hope that someday somebody will cosplay and make those crazy helmets and then do resin casts, and then I can buy one off of them. Because I just want a collection of cool ass helmets that I can wear when I feel like I need to feel powerful. Today is a day where I need to wear a helmet to feel like a badass. Sorry, it's allergy season, so if I'm hacking up a lung, that's why. Allergies are bad for me. They are super bad for me. Hold, bros. Don't bro out just yet, bros. Little fins. I'd be curious to learn why these helmets were developed this way. Like, what do the fins do in terms of protection? Or is it, you know, purely for decoration? Or is there a purpose behind the stuff? Like, is there a purpose behind the floaty, I guess the helmet collar? I don't know what you would call it. Or if all this stuff is merely decorational. It'd be cool. I'd be interested to know. Time to look up a History Channel documentary. Sometimes you gotta figure out how the armor attaches to the arms. And sometimes it just works itself out. This is not one of those times. Let's see. Now Mr. Sideburns Takeshi here. Why not? Oh boy. Oops. Let's get a little bit of that separation in there. Arms out. There's his sword. Skirt armors. Skirt armors. There we go. Three, not four. Whoops. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. These are pretty sloppy looking, but hopefully it fits. Schmunk, schmunk. Protect your neck. Extra neck protection. That is good for you, but bad for the rest of them because they don't have that. Okay, so alright, well, I think that's gonna do it for this page, at least for what I've got. Thank you for checking this out, and hope you got something from all of this. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll check you later. Bye. How do I stop you? Stop.